This shouldn't be too bad. I've played this game countless times, and okay, I've lost complete control over my entire life. Super Mario Bros. 35 is a battle royale version of the original Mario Bros. On the NES. The game has you playing through a handful of classic Mario levels with 34 other players. They're not actually in the level with you, but each person plays through their own separate game. The online interaction comes from killing enemies. See, every time you kill someone, it goes into another player's game. It goes both ways though, and you can find yourself in some pretty fucked up situations. When I first saw this game in Nintendo's 35th Anniversary Direct, I really didn't think much of it. I thought it was funny that the Battle Royale thing has gotten so popular that even Nintendo had to jump on board, but other than that, my main attention was all on 3D All-Stars. But now that I've played it, the game is actually pretty fun. On the surface, the idea of only interacting with players by setting them enemies seems pretty shallow. And don't get me wrong, the game is far from complicated, but it's a lot more fun than it initially sounds. Games can end up feeling really intense at times, especially when you end up getting swamped with a shitload of enemies at once and you don't have a fire flower or a star. Seriously, at some point it feels like every single other player is ganging up on me. You can choose to target a specific player or sort it out by these options. It may seem all a little overwhelming at first, but it does get easier to balance it all out once you start getting the hang of things. The game really switches up how you play Mario Bros. No matter how familiar you are with the game, you're gonna have to adjust your playstyle. Speedrunning doesn't really work, because not only do you need to kill enemies to attack your opponents, but you also need to in order to fill up your timer. Yeah, there's a timer that automatically kills you if it runs out. For that same reason, you can't really just hide in one corner and wait out the game, at least not until later when you've racked up a ton of time. The game also incentivizes you to collect coins. For every 20 coins you get, you're able to spin this little roulette wheel that drops a random item, and these can really save your ass in certain situations. There's no limit to how many roulettes you can hold either, so if you don't need to use it right now, you can continue to collect coins to build them up for later. I'm not exactly sure how the level selection works. You get to pick a stage out of the ones you've unlocked at the beginning, but that doesn't always mean you start playing that one. Maybe it's a voting system or something. The levels don't go in order either. You can start on 1-1, but then go to 1-3. You can grab the warp pipe shortcut on 1-2 and just play the same level again. It creates some interesting strategies because some levels are both easier and have plenty of bad guys for you to stomp and send over to other players. Dealing with swarms of enemies can get pretty scary, and it definitely puts much more value on items like fire flowers and stars. Personally, I consider Fire Flower Mario the default state of the game, as it makes defeating huge swarms of enemies a lot more easy. Using the coins you've collected, you can actually start the round with an item already equipped. Coins are pretty easy to gain, so I just start every game with a Fire Flower. Maybe that's cheap, but I don't give a shit. You can end up seeing some pretty wacky stuff. Piranha plants coming out of nowhere, armies of Goombas and Koopas, random Bowsers in the middle of a level. Yeah, even defeating Bowser sends him into another player's game. It's pretty cool, and it does a good job of keeping you from feeling too comfortable within any given round. To give you an idea of how much gets thrown at you, only about a half hour into the game, I had already killed nearly 700 Goombas. There are some negatives though, and some stuff that makes me question the long-term viability of the game. Unlike other Battle Royale games, there aren't really any rewards. You get these icons, but they only show up on certain menus and are basically gone throughout the core game. It would have been cool if you could actually unlock these things as playable characters. There's also these daily challenges, but they just get you more coins, which are already pretty easy to come across in the actual game. You do level up, but it's stupid easy to the point where it's basically trivial. Within the first 15 minutes or so of playing, I already went past level 10, and I wasn't even doing all that well in the actual games. There's also this bonus mode, which presumably will change since it says it's limited. It really doesn't feel all that different from the regular mode though. I think in this one we were all just starting with 100 coins, but other than that, it was basically the exact same game. However, I think the biggest issue comes when you get down to around 5 or so players. At a certain point, there's not enough people to constantly send a barrage of enemies. It switches from a game where you're trying to overwhelm other players with this constant onslaught of enemies into one where you're basically waiting for someone to mess up, and that usually ends up being me. The timer does start speeding up when you're down to 2 players, but again, it doesn't really feel like you have any control over if you win or lose. Granted, the game is free with a Nintendo Online subscription, so I think it's fair if we cut it some slack. If I had to, I don't think I'd pay for it, but I'll definitely keep playing while it's available. Sure, there are some issues, but in the end, it's a fucking Mario Battle Royale game. I mean, it's crazy that this exists in the first place. Now, I just have to hope and pray that Nintendo one day gets around to making a Fall Guys-inspired Battle Royale Mario Party.